I watched Day Shift starring Jamie Foxx last night, and I absolutely adored it. It's a great vampire movie. But it made me think, what are my top 3 vampire movies of all time? Welcome to SciTrek, your sci-fi TV and movie channel. First of all, I've got to say, Day Shift, a great movie. It's why I love vampire films. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's a comedy at times. It's got some brilliant gore in it, which always amuses me. It respects the vampire lore while adding a few new twists. I love, for example, there's a fight scene at the start. Bit of a spoiler here, but he's fighting an old woman that's a vampire, obviously. Not just punching an old woman in the face. That would have been much of a movie. But you can see the fight in the mirror, and in the mirror it's just the pyjamas of the woman's wearing. You can't see the reflection. Little things like that, great special effects that I absolutely adore. So if you haven't seen Day Shift with Jamie Foxx on Netflix yet, please go watch it, it's great. And before I get into my top 3 vampire movies of all time, I've got to give a couple of honourable mentions. Blade with Wesley Snipes, and then Blade Trinity, actually, I equally adore both those movies, was just brilliant. It's a balls-out action movie. It's not particularly clever in ways, but it's just a great movie. It is very grown-up in places. It's very silly in other places. And the whole fight scene at the end, when Wesley Snipes, Frost! And it's just great. I love it, and it makes you want to go out and punch a vampire in the face. It's a brilliant film. I absolutely love it. Underworld, very similarly. Vampires and werewolves. Kate Beckinsale, insanely sexy throughout. Just a brilliant movie. Rise of the Lycans was also absolutely brilliant. Really great special effects. I love the bit where she steps off the tower and just the hero land and then just walks. It's just really seriously cool. The second and third ones were awful, but we'll ignore that. It's just the first one was a great movie and really actually, copied sort of it. It was like The Matrix with werewolves. I have no problem with that, but yeah, just a great film. Fright Night 2011 version gets an honourable mention basically because David Tennant's in it, and David Tennant is brilliant in it. Now, I love the original, but the 2011 version was just great. And if you haven't seen it, please go give it a watch. This one I'm going to get some hate text for. People are going to go, Jay, have you lost your freaking mind? What are you talking about? But Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, didn't make my top 3, but I actually do love this film. It's quite funny in places. It doesn't take itself too seriously, because how can it? It's about Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. It's based on a series of very dark comic books. And actually, it's just really, really good. If you haven't seen it, don't listen to the haters, because it did bomb and it did no business at the box office. But don't listen to the haters. Go watch it. It's actually not a bad film. You have to turn your brain off a little bit, but don't you have to for all great movies? By the way, if you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. It really helps us out. And if you are enjoying the content, please consider hitting the join button, because that really helps us out. So my top 3. I'm starting off with a big hitter, The Lost Boys.
You don't want to miss this.
Joel Schumacher's 1987 take on the vampire movie was game-changing. Nobody had really seen a vampire movie like that before. It was very much set in its time. It's like along the lines of sort of like The Breakfast Club and other movies in style in some ways. There was teen angst, and it was a movie basically made for teenagers. But nobody had ever quite seen a vampire movie done that way before. It's been copied lots of times since. You could argue actually that Buffy the Vampire Slayer was heavily inspired by this movie.
Don't ever invite a vampire into your house, you silly boy. It renders you powerless.
Did you know that?
Of course. Everyone knows that.
And I just have to say that it thoroughly deserves to be in my top 3 because Kiefer Sutherland is great in it. All the other actors are great in it. There are comedy elements in it. There are bits in it that are kind of silly, but there are bits in it that are actually very terrifying as well. It has all the bits that make a great vampire movie for me. I'm going to tell you now, though, that none of the films on my list are particularly serious vampire movies, and none of them are going to be Twilight either. I don't particularly enjoy the serious vampire movies. Bram Stoker's Dracula is a great movie, but it is very, very heavy and very serious. I prefer the movies that have a bit of fun to them. So number 2 on my list, John Carpenter's Vampires. Now, James Woods is one of those actors that I absolutely adore. I don't like his politics, but I do like him as an actor. He did this film with about boxing, which I can't remember the name of, but it's a great movie. James Woods' character, Jack Crow, is thoroughly dislikable. Almost every character in the movie is thoroughly dislikable. It is the proper anti-hero sort of character. You're not supposed to like him. They drink, they do drugs, they do prostitutes, they do all sorts of things. They're not nice people. They're not really doing this because they are trying to save anyone's life. They're doing it because they hate vampires or they want money. So, again, it's a completely different twist on the vampire genre. John Carpenter, for me, who's the director, did an amazing job. He completely twisted the whole Van Helsing sort of character idea on its head. There's some brilliant gore. I remember one character gets his head pulled off, another character gets cut in half with his hand, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. The first time I watched it, I knew nothing about it. I sat down and watched it and I went, shit, and I watched it again the next day. It's terrifying in places, it's funny in places, and it just twists the whole idea of what a vampire movie should be completely up in knots. If you
Hit it! I'm going! Jesus Christ, Jack, he's right behind us! Come on, go! Hit it!
I absolutely adore this movie, and I really struggled not putting it in at number 1. Another film that deserves a quick mention is Daybreakers. Now, I actually found the film quite disappointing, a little boring, but I did think that the idea was very, very clever. But at number 1 is a brilliantly clever movie, one that completely blew my mind when I saw it. From Dusk Till Dawn. Quentin Tarantino completely played up to Quentin Tarantino's style in this movie, and for the first half you just think it's another Tarantino movie.
We got to get our asses into Mexico tonight, and then Carlos is going to meet us there at the rendezvous tomorrow morning. And then he and his boys, both of them, all of them, are going to escort us to El Rey. Where's the woman?
And then it turns into the bloodbath of a vampire movie directed by Robert Rodriguez that we now love.
To this day, I don't remember.
It spawned a TV series that was rubbish, and a couple of movies that were also rubbish. But the original was fantastic, incredibly clever, and George Clooney, again, well, it made his career. We also got to see Salma Hayek for the first time, with a snake. Quite like that. I love this movie because, again, it's got the silliness, it's got the fun, it's got the violence, and it's, in places, terrifying. It was, again, a twist on the vampire movie that we'd never seen before, and added to the lore of the vampires. I love the bit at the end where you come away and you can see that it's the temple pyramid with all the trucks. It had elements in this movie that were very, very clever. It was an astonishingly well put together film. It was a film that knew exactly what it was and played up to it. It was a film that knew Quentin Tarantino would be in it and played up to that. Just a brilliantly clever movie that twists you all over the place several times. You never know what's coming next. And for me, it's just a perfect vampire film. So guys, tell me what you think. What are your top 3 vampire movies? I'd love to know. Get in the comments. And if you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out. Also, you can become a fully fledged SciTrekker. Hit the join button. As always, guys, please stay safe. I'll see you next time.